limited to academic world. Urban Naxals are people who provide intellectual nourishment to Naxalites who have perpetrated worst kind of violence in this country. The Naxal debate is also part of the political narrative. It burst into scene with Tukre Tukre gang. On Sunday evening, the Tukre Tukre gang returned. Instead of helping the cause of pollution, it contaminated it. It did disservice to genuine activism, but it also proved that the urban Naxal ecosystem is alive and kicking. The protesters displayed posters of Maoist Hidma and raised slogans like Hidma Amar Hai. When police personnel tried to disperse them, they used chilli spray on the officers and tried to attack them. Hidma, an infamous Naxal commander who carried a bounty of rupees crore on his head, was killed in an encounter in Andhra Pradesh this month. By comparing him with Birsa Munda and carrying placard in the support of Hidma responsible for killing security personnel, the protesters not just went against national interests, they also gave environmentalists a bad name. Lest we forget, Hidma was the man behind Dantewada massacre. Over 7,000 people, including more than 2,700 security personnel, have been killed in Naxal violence in last 35 years as per South Asia Terrorism Portal. And this raises pertinent question. Is the left ideologically bankrupt? And on this, I am joined by Hindol Singh Gupta, historian, commentator. With me in the studio is News9's input editor, Brijesh Pandey. Let me straight away go to Hindol Singh Gupta. I mean to say, rather than just starting from decontaminating the genuine activism, let me put this question differently. Is left intellectually dead in this country?
Far from it. There are two or three things that are worth mentioning here, Kartikeya, and thank you for inviting me to your show. Number one, at the stage of development in which India exists today, the idea that the country or the state or society should be more equitable, which is the sort of front-facing belief of the left, will always be popular among many people. But there is a deeper insidious issue that we have to grapple with. With the failure of the Soviet Union and indeed the failure of revolution in India, the prize for the left or the ultra-left, which was hoping to, in a sense, trigger communist revolution in India, has moved further and further away. Please remember, former Prime Minister Manmohan Singh used to describe the Maoist terror in central India as India's biggest internal threat. What has happened, and as you were saying, this entire violence has an intellectual cover. Even today, as the Indian state moves in to finally settle this issue, there are people in Delhi who are giving it intellectual cover by saying, oh, why aren't they listening to the Maoists and so on and so forth? Why aren't they allowing them to surrender? They are allowing them to surrender, but the state must take a hard security stand. After all, as you yourself pointed out, Kartikeya, 2,700 security personnel have been murdered. So, I want to talk about this with a certain perspective. We must wipe this out. It's absolutely critical that we must wipe this out. And we must also wipe out its intellectual cover. At the same time, there is a need, and I keep saying that as we wipe this out in the jungles of central India, something more equitable must replace it. Rapacious mining or rapacious real estate is one of the most corrupt sectors in India, cannot go in and destroy this thing that we are getting back after so much bloodshed, our country, our land that we are getting back after so much bloodshed. There's a balance. But this intellectual cover in our cities is extremely toxic. It moves from certain kinds of academia, it moves from certain kinds of quote-unquote commentariat, it moves from certain kinds of media, which pushes this agenda day in and day out. In fact, these kids who went to protest there, the truth came out of them. They have been so indoctrinated in a pollution protest, they began to talk about Hidma. This is very dangerous. This is very insidious. My last point, Kartikeya, I really want to make this point. Please remember, around the world, the extreme left and the Muslim Brotherhood and Islamists are coming together. They are trying to come together in India too. We already know that elements of the Muslim Brotherhood are active already in Kashmir. These elements are trying to come together. If they do manage to come together, it will be very bad news for India.
Brijesh, do you think that this is like actual disservice to good activism, which is like everyone suffers from pollution in Delhi? You know, it's a problem. But what these guys have done, no one is going to go to India Gate.
Well, I think it was extremely perplexing because, there were people had assembled to protest against the poisonous air which we are breathing, kids are breathing. And, almost every sane mind is protesting against it, hoping that some sort of solution comes out from the government or some other way, where you can have a clean air, it should be your right. But the fact of the matter is that this particular protest, there's one individual sitting there with a poster of Hidma and, the slogans being raised, Hidma, Amar Rahe and all. It was extremely baffling.
There are a lot of them. If you look at it, there are a lot of them. There was an entire group. Lot of people were holding.
It was extremely baffling, and I think it shows that complete disconnect from reality which is happening. And as Hindol was also pointing out, the fact is that once it was the biggest internal security threat, as was pointed out by the then Prime Minister Dr. Manmohan Singh. But right now it's literally on its last leg, and the government is giving opportunities for all these Maoists to surrender their arms unconditionally and join the mainstream. But you cannot be waging war against nation and then killing security forces and then expecting a fair play as far as this.
That's a very important point. Hindol, why doesn't people understand that when you use certain words, even rhetorically, it questions the very idea of nation? Even if I keep aside, their lack of history, understanding who Birsa Munda is and who Hidma is, I really don't want, they should have read the history books before comparing Birsa Munda with Hidma. The basic understanding what constitutes a nation, how you define your protest, everything is missing. This questions the very idea of nationhood, the protest. And it's not a funny thing. As a citizen, I don't find it funny.
No, it's not funny at all, and we should not take this lightly at all. Please remember, for a long time, all of this poison that was poured into young people was taken lightly. Please remember, Karthikeya, and I'm sure Brijesh will remember, and you will also remember, we all used to be journalists at that time. At one point, the Home Minister of the country went to JNU and actually said to students there who cheered loudly that, oh, we know you will never give up arms because, that's your struggle. This is your armed struggle. But we are just asking you for a little bit of time from the Maoists to actually have a conversation. The Home Minister of India was begging with cheering students who had been indoctrinated at JNU to think in terms of the fact that, this nation has to be transformed, there has to be armed rebellion. And of course, the people who indoctrinated all these things are looking towards China, looking towards erstwhile Soviet Union. So these people still want a revolution in India. They are still angling for a revolution in India. You will often hear people say, oh, there is no such thing as India. It's only just a combination of all these sort of,
Union of states.
A union of states. This sort of language constantly undermines the sovereignty of India. And young people who have never seen anything, who have never read anything, who have never tried to understand how this nation got created, what kind of sacrifices went in, what's our civilization, what's our legacy, they are indoctrinated by this false idea of equity, by this false idea that everybody can be made equal if you snatch away everything from everyone and you hold a massacre killing hundreds and thousands of people to bring about so-called revolution. Every such revolutionary idea ends in the mass slaughter of people, and that it hasn't happened in India. There are many of this kind of intellectuals who always wonder how is it that they weren't able to do this revolution in India, and I understand it only too well. I come from Calcutta. When I was a child, my parents saw the Naxal revolution play out. This was the great dream. This poison is still being fed to young people, and every time they find a new garb. Once it was about land reform, then it was against capitalism. Today the garb is environmentalism. But the idea is always the same. Overthrow democratically elected government, bring about chaos and revolution, so that in fact what will be the end of it? Foreign governments will take charge and will be able to control this vast country and all its wealth and resources. This is always the final target. And I want to repeat this. This combination of the extreme left and the Islamists are happening around the world. This may happen yet in India. We have to be very, very careful, and people should really understand what the dangers are, considering only a few days ago, after 14 years, a terror attack has happened in the heart of Delhi.
Hindol, if we That's a question up your alley. If you look at the partition papers, the attention of the top leadership of the Congress then was primarily about liquidating the princely states. And the second biggest, the concentration or the focus of the government then was taking care of the violence being perpetrated by communists, especially in deep south. In fact, in 50s, the first elected government in Kerala was overthrown by the Congress party on grounds that they were trying to subvert the democratic order. How, in your opinion, why has Congress and left so come close together when the founding fathers at the dawn, when our nation was formed, the state came into existence, they were primarily concerned with the communist violence and the princely states? Such a radical departure.
But this is all in the history books. Of course, all the papers are there. As you correctly pointed out, anyone who manages to or has the time and the inclination to go through the papers like you have always done, Kartikeya, will know this. Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel used to complain about this, that what do the communists want? Do they not want a free country? How is it that we are fighting so hard to end colonialism? They are fighting to bring about chaos and revolution. But how can we push this agenda until we get freedom? It is only when we get freedom that we will be able to better the lot of our people. But remember, the communists never actually accepted freedom, the end of colonial rule. They said famously, you will remember, "Ye azadi jhooti hai."
Correct.
You know the communist
Absolutely.
slogan. They said, "Ye azadi jhooti hai," because they wanted society-wide revolution.
You don't believe it? I heard this 10 days ago in a conversation. I will not tell you the place, but I was stunned because the person was 26-year-old.
But this is exactly it. That's what I'm saying. We are fooling ourselves if we feel that this is all gone. This is very much in our midst. Our students are being fed all this once again, and they've been fed this for a long, long time. Please go and see that video. All of you remember, I'm sure, of Chidambaram saying, we're not asking you. Can you imagine the Home Minister of the country is telling a bunch of students who are clapping loudly that the people who are murdering and slaughtering our security forces in the jungles, we cannot ask you to give up arms because we know you will not give it up. The ridiculous helplessness of it all.
Absolutely.
It makes a citizen's, blood boil.
Absolutely. I'll take a closing comment from Brijesh. Brijesh, do you think that Congress, by coming together with left so closely, has done a disservice to its own original ideological mooring?
Well, that is the reason why they are in such, position. Politically, they are completely isolated and they are neither left nor right. And this is the reason why, they are literally, it's a slightly harsh word, but the reality is they are staring at political oblivion. They're in 3 states and chances of them returning power in Karnataka, in Himachal Pradesh is very, very less likely. And you'll be left with Telangana. You can have 100 member of parliaments, but you're literally staring at political oblivion. You're perhaps the smallest area you will be governing since independence.
Absolutely. Very well put. Indol, thank you so much for joining me. The reason why I had this conversation was to put it on record that there is nothing romantic about it. There is nothing imaginative about it. And this has to be nubbed. This has to be nubbed. And this was on point 2, but don't go away because then on point 3, I'll talk about Mahi Way.